So, for today, you find a workbook on your place, right? So you got something at the beginning, but I adapted the slides. I'm here since Sunday, and since then, hopefully my understanding has evolved. So some parts you find here connected to the workbook that you have in your hands, and some things changed. And of course you will get the slides as a PDF file afterwards. So please, I apologize that sometimes there is not a good connection with the workbook and with the slides. So there are some new elements there. Also, I had to learn what a workshop is. So a workshop is something where we are working, right? It's not just a lecture where we are in a cinema or watching a movie. We're working together. And as you already had a very fruitful, I think, panel discussion between the panelists, it was not just a sequence of lectures, right? But it was a sequence of statements. It was an interaction between the people here and also with you. So I hope that until the end of this workshop today, we are also having this interaction together. And so when I say like glasses, it means, let's say I offer you some glasses to wear for the eyes. You could hold the glasses in your hand and say, what a beautiful glass, right? Beautiful, the frame, everything is beautiful, but the question is, do you also test it? Do you take it on? And it doesn't mean that you need to keep it, but just a question of, can we test it and really wear it? And I warn you, if I may, that I will invite you after each part, so there are 3 parts, after each part, it will invite you to mix tables, that you're sitting together with new people and then that you can exchange with new people, because for each part that I'm speaking, first I will speak, then I ask you to please discuss on the table what you just heard with some questions, and then let's have a plenary discussion. So in Austria we needed to learn to have these tables and to have these table discussions, because otherwise always the same people will talk in the plenary session. And so how can everybody exchange and digest a bit what we just have been hearing? English is not my first language, as you can hear, and I apologize for being unclear sometimes maybe, so please interrupt me and help me to clarify. And also it could be that I have a hard time understanding what you say, even if you're using perfect English, but it's, as I say, not my first language, so please help me that we can understand. There are 3 parts today. The first part where we'll start, why do I use the metaphor of a garden? So as it says, schools as gardens for a new good life. So why do I use the metaphor of gardens? Why do I call it a good life? And why do I call it a new good life? And then you already heard something or maybe saw something about the shadows. So why am I talking about shadows? This will be the first part. The second part, why do I talk about a new good life, and what is the Western version? So you find what I call the Western version, and I'm not sure if this is really helpful for you also. And then I would offer something for Nepal, something that I hopefully understood a bit better in the last days, to start a discussion together. And the third part is until now open. I have some ideas what I think could be helpful, maybe connecting to what I heard from the panel discussion together with you. But maybe from the exchange we are having in the first session and the second session, maybe new elements come up. So there's a reservoir of 80 slides, but I promise I will not show them. I will just try to select and to be on the point, to be connected with our interaction. So why am I talking about gardens? We realized that over time, we used all kinds of metaphors to describe helpfully what is going on and what we could and should do. So in the West, we have been using metaphors of kingdoms, for example, like ants, the small animals, the ants. We're talking about ants' kingdoms, etc. We're talking about organizations, even public ones. We were using as if there was a king or a queen up there, you know, and the others are the servants. And more then with technology we're using mechanical metaphors like machines. So organizations are like machines and everybody's like a peg in a wheel or something. And more we now realize that life itself is the best appropriate metaphor for now at least. Maybe we'll come up with a better one, but for now I see that life itself is the perfect metaphor for what we are doing here. Because life needs good conditions to flourish, but can you make life? Can you produce an ant, even an ant? Can you produce a living being from the ingredients? Can you put it together and then it's alive? No, we can't. So we can kill it, we can diminish it, we can reduce the life energy, but how can we support it, even if we cannot make it? We can support it with water, with nourishment, etc. And this is also what I heard, I think, from the panel discussion. What is it that we can do? That we can create good conditions for education. So, and this life, how we can nourish it and how can we be gardens, this is true for people, for students, for relationships, for teams, and also for businesses, and for a whole of society. We cannot make society, we can nourish it. And what is it that we can do? So when I talk about schools as gardens, my question is, how can we create conditions that are supportive for life that is emerging here? Why am I talking about even a good life? I will talk about the new good life on the next slide, but now first let me talk about the good life. And in the West again, what is one of the mistakes that we are still making all the time? We are not differentiating between what is an end and what is a means. So an end means the goal, what it is for, the purpose. And the means is a tool to get there. So if I use a ladder to get up to the first floor, then the ladder is just a means. It's not the purpose to climb on a ladder. But if I have to use a ladder, okay, I use the ladder, but the purpose is to get to the first floor. And it's the same here. Of course, there are many, many important means, important ladders. So infrastructure, money, development, skills, whatever it is important, right? But for a good life, it's just a means, it's just a ladder. At the end of your life, and also during your life, will you say, oh, I'm so happy because I have so many skills? Or because I have such a big car? It can feel as if you were happy to have a big car or a big house for the beginning, right? But this dwindles, the importance, the happiness goes away. What is sustaining the happiness? What is the purpose really that makes life meaningful? And now comes the point, at the slide before that you saw after my biography, I was talking about the new good life, and I said even if life conditions change, and I will talk in a minute about the shadows, where I'm afraid and many other people are afraid that we are not going in an exponential path of everything getting better. There may be times ahead when it's not getting better. And how can we have a good life then? Because for now, at least in the West, many people define their version of a good life as it's getting better every year. My children have a better life. And that's wonderful if it's working. But if it's not working, then I'm unhappy. And my question is, how can we support our definition and recalibrate, redefine our definition, our story for what a good life is? So the good life, what is it for you? And we are influenced by cultural tradition, family tradition, societal groups, etc. But in the end we have to reinvent, I think, at least in the West, for us what it means to have a good life. And for example, just a small thing, in our family we needed to restart tradition of eating together. If we would not have been careful, everybody would have come home, taken something out of the refrigerator, switched on the television and eating while watching television alone. Half an hour later the next person would come, do the same thing. And so we needed to restart this tradition of having this good quality time together. And I'm sure you have maybe similar examples where it's necessary not just to observe what is happening, but to clarify, oh, this is good life quality. Here we want to make a focus. And now, why am I talking about a new good life? Because the old recipes are no longer working. As I said, in the West we were talking about everything is getting better, and this graphic will be much larger later, it's just a symbol here. So modernity has brought us riches, some life quality, improvements, but it's a limited game. We have been exploiting the globe for now, let's say, 100 years, immensely beyond capacity. It's clear that limits are coming. It's a question of when, but the limits are clear. Everybody who can do simple mathematics knows that there are limits on the planet and we are having exponential growth. So the limits are coming. And the question is just, how can we then react? So the new story for the West will be, how can we handle these pictures of exponential growth and transform them to sustainable circles. So that's our job that we have to do here. And I'm afraid also for you that going back to some tradition that you might have had for, 80 years ago, 50 years ago or more, just going back, it will not work. There are countries who try to wall, to stop the influence from the West, cutting people coming in, stopping internet, and trying to hold people back from going outside. You are beyond this point. Even if you want it, you cannot do it anymore. But if you're not careful, everything that is precious about tradition could get washed away, and you will get some kind of Western version, and many unhappy people here, I'm pretty sure. So what I see is, and what I find very promising, is how you are trying to find good integrations for what is precious from your tradition and what to integrate from some kind of modernity without making the mistakes of repeating every other mistakes that we have been making. So I think this is what I find very promising here and where I want to go deeper. So what is our job? Let's say you're all captains on a ship. And this is a ship here, and this is in the ice sea. So we could say our ship is working in the ship, right? So doing whatever is necessary in the ship. Making dishes, eating, a lot of necessary things. We could also say working on the ship. Oh, there are some repairs to be made, something can be improved, something can be cleaned, processes redefined. So then we are finished, right? And my focus for today will be not so much on the first two, but rather here, looking out for challenges and opportunities ahead. Because on the ice sea it's quite dangerous because there are icebergs, and most of these parts are not visible for the eye, so they are below the surface. And you need to be really careful for what is coming. And this is the reason why I want to talk first about the 7 global shadows. And I'm trying, in the West, I realize that many people have a feeling that something is going on here, but there are 2 reactions. One reaction is, not in my lifetime. Until I will die, this won't happen. So why bother? There are other people who say, well, there have always been these doom prophets, so people who are talking negatively about the future. It won't be that much of a problem. And there are other people who say, well, humans are so creative. We have found solutions again and again. We will find solutions this time as well. Let's see. So these global shadows, of course, have been created by modernity. It was not tradition. It was modernity with all this ingenuity who only produced all these shadows. But even if you and your country and countries like you with your tradition did not create these shadows, you are already and will be affected. That's the problem. So let me talk about 7 shadows, and this is the part that you find pretty much in your workbooks, and you find more material there if you want to read it afterwards also at home. So demography is one of the things that is silent and it's difficult to see. So one of the things that we, for example, experience in Austria is that we have a hard time finding people for our jobs. And I think I heard that you were sharing it's difficult to find teachers. Did I understand this correctly? So on the one hand you could say, okay, people don't want to be teachers, they want to have other jobs. And we need to do something about the image of teaching, right? Okay. But if you look at your demography chart, the strongest cohort is 27 years old. And after that, people get less people each year. And you in Nepal, as we in Austria, you're also under the reproduction rate. So you're having less people each year. At the same time, as we in Austria, for quite some years, we were growing as a population. You're also growing for the next years. So how come, if you have less children, how is it is possible that you're growing? Because the strong cohorts are getting older. And you have a very sharp pyramid, and then the strongest part 27, and then it's getting slim again. So of course you will get more people, but you will have less and less people under the age of 27. So how to handle this? And this is a problem, of course, for students, because you have less students, all in all together. And teachers, are there, all of them that you're looking for, are they older than 27? I think you also want younger teachers, right? But they are less available. So this is a challenge that we in Austria have quite a lot. In every part of industries we're looking for people. There are industries that need to close, not because they didn't have the money, not because they didn't have customers, but because they don't have employees. So this is a challenge, and of course the same with old age. We are now closing down some units in hospitals, not because of money, not because lack of patients, but because lack of employees who could take care of these people. So we're closing down units. And you can imagine the results happening in families with people who would need care but cannot go into hospital. It's quite a challenge, and we never thought that in Austria, this wonderful Western country, we could run into these kinds of problems, and suddenly they're there. So this is just one of the shadows that we're having in the West, but you're also having it here in the East. The chart that you are seeing here, would you recognize it, the country? That's China, yeah. And you can see how they have a similar pyramid than we in the West. So also they will run into some kind of problem having less young people. Also India is overtaking China as a population. So whatever this means for you, I'm not sure, but demography changes make movement and make tensions between countries. Second, climate change. Even if you did not produce it, you are affected by it. In Austria 10 years ago, people would have laughed about you, or they were laughing about you, if you would have shared that you think climate change could be a problem. Then they would have thought, oh, you're just an... Okay? They were thinking you're a bit mad or over-exaggerating. And now, the farmers themselves, the traditional farmers, they're saying there's something happening here with small good things. So spring starting earlier. We can start to produce earlier, but then we have large, long periods of no rain, and then suddenly so much rain that we have floods. So agriculture is very much affected. The insurance companies are always a good indicator. So they are raising their rates because they see how the risks are getting more. So there is something really going on here for agriculture, but also in our cities. Our cities getting really hot in summer, which we did not experience before. And I'm afraid you also have changes here in climate, with effects on agriculture and also other parts. Third, unresolved questions of resources. So the good news that I learned about your country is that you are now concerning electricity self-sustaining. And you're even selling electricity, right? And you have more potential here. Congratulations. At the same time, all the gasoline that your cars and motorcycles are using, do you have it in your own soil? No? And even if you had it, it's limited. So you are very much dependent here on this raw material, let alone all other things. this computer here, even if it would have been put together in Austria, which it is not, but even then, the parts are coming from all over the world, and we lack each country, even the whole of Europe, even the whole of United States, even China, Taiwan, each country for itself is lacking the capacity and the raw materials to produce it. So this is a global chain that is working together here, and we are running out of these raw materials. So the question will be, how can we also not just exploit, but come into cycles? And this is not just a question for the green environmentalists. This is a hard business question. Fragile international finance systems. I think you have been affected also by some crazy things that happened in all other places on the world. And this is really fragile. We see it also now in the war, Ukraine-Russia, how the finance systems are used as weapons, and how easy it is that we have tipping points. In Austria now we have 10% inflation, unheard of. We didn't have this for 70 years. Suddenly we have 10%. Nobody really knows well what this will mean. At the moment the state is throwing money outside to the people to kind of keep people calm, but this will not work in the long run. So there is inflation there, and maybe you have more experience with normal inflation, but there are tipping points on the whole globe. The gross national products, they're growing, and if you correlate gross national product with energy consumption, these are two exponential curves being linked. But we all know if we are having limited systems and we have exponential curves, what will happen? You know, some kind of tipping point is coming, and this will also affect our financial systems. Not sure what it means, but there will be some effect here. Digitalization, artificial intelligence, you might say this is just an opportunity, right? So this is really positive. Yes, and there are some people who say digitalization is a problem because it is reducing jobs. And this is true and not true. So it's true because it replaces jobs of simple labor. So if you go into a factory in the West, you can see how robots are doing a lot of things. If you look at very sophisticated software, you can see that there is, for example, legal software that is doing the job of easy lawyers. So easy, simple checks, for example, if you have a treaty, an arrangement between two organizations, easy software, artificial intelligence software, can check it and makes less mistakes than lawyers. Oh, there is something coming, you know? What does it mean for education? So what example is it that you can train young people which cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence? And of course, everybody needs good language skills, calculation skills. There is a need and necessary basis. But if you think that you will have a job in the long run because you're best calculator, then artificial intelligence will outrun you. But so that means we need some kind of creativity, some kind of social intelligence, some kind of dialectical thinking. So not just linear, logical thinking, but thinking in polarities. These are the things that cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence. Divergence of values. So, where to start? In our country, so that means we need some kind of creativity, some kind of social intelligence, some kind of dialectical thinking. So not just linear, logical thinking, but thinking in polarities. These are the things that cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence. Sometimes it seems that we don't have the same language. So everybody speaks German. It's not a problem. But it seems if a 15-year-old person would talk to a 70-year-old person, and the 15-year-old is just young, and the 70-year-old person is just talking about his or her traditional perspective, you would find that they don't have common ground. And what I have experienced here is that you are experiencing similar things. I have been talking with young people, and they were asking me about YouTubers, stars that are producing podcasts on YouTube, and they're not just sharing technological information, they are sharing value information about what a family is, what a male is, what a female is, etc., all these things, and they are getting more affected by this education than by their parents or by you as a school. So this is the massive educational impact our digitization and the internet has on young people. And I would wonder if these young people, even if they're from your culture, if they have a common ground with many other people. So this is a value divergence that I'm seeing. And at the same time, I find it promising what you're doing here, that you're thinking about how can we bridge these gaps, how can we bring this together instead of having escalations between different value bubbles. The last one, the end of the globalized order, I already addressed it in another aspect. The United States have been protecting the sea trade channels for the last 60, 70 years. Also out of own interest, because the United States was very much dependent on oil and gas and other raw materials from other countries. Within the last 5 to 10 years, the United States has been more independent now about their raw materials. So they have enough oil and enough gas. Already they are reducing capacity from the Gulf of Persia, for example. And there are many traffic ways that have been protected well. No pirates, safe travel, good business, and less there is security on the seaways. So the United States won't have that much a problem. Other states, like Austria, maybe Nepal, will have problems because we are so much dependent on safe pathways for trade. So this is something we take for granted because it has been there for the last 50 years and longer. I'm not sure if it will be the same here. So I've been talking with some of you, and also the question of how can we be more resilient? So how can we not so much depend on other things from other countries? So how can we have a kind of, I think you said bottom up, basic, back to basic. Back to basic was the term. So how can we have competencies, so even if the world is changing, we are not helpless. And each country will need to find its own solution, but these are my questions here. So what could it mean if the global circumstances, these 7 shadows, if they are coming nearer, how will this affect your businesses? How do you need to act or react? But also, what kind of education do you want to give your students that they will find it, that they find a way in this new world that we don't even know yet? I've been talking now about global shadows. In the last few days, I have been collecting a few local shadows, and I want to show what I understood, to let you know, of course, that I know that you have other problems as well. These 7 global shadows seem to be quite far away. You will not find these local shadows in the workbook. What I understood so far is that due to many reasons, COVID mainly, but also other reasons, I think the economic situations for schools and for private schools is difficult. The economic situation of parents, COVID, other reasons, difficult. You have different conditions, and some say unfair competition between private and public schools. And I've been discussing over the days a lot about how could be a path to resolve this riddle or this knot in a helpful way that is not only helpful for you as private schools, but also helpful for students and the country. There is quite a strong focus on grades, and what I'm hearing is that it's not only you as schools or the teachers themselves that are putting the focus on the grades, but that the parents are also putting a lot of focus on the grades, and that they're pressurizing their children and also you to really focus on the grades and not do anything extra, for example. So this is one of the shadows what I'm hearing. We have been hearing about the brain drain. I think the term was used in the panel discussion, and I also heard that some could say you as private schools maybe you're not creating the problem, but you're making the problem worse, because you're supporting the students with knowledge and perspective, that because of these perspectives they want to go outside and they are able to go outside. True and not true, probably, right? So maybe we can come back to this question if you're interested about the brain drain later. I have heard that the government has quite a critical view on schools as businesses, so the legal form is business, making money, that there is a critical view on this. And also that as in Austria, as in Europe, everywhere, the COVID crisis accelerated a trend that we are having in all other places as well, the trend that the attention span, the time we can focus is getting shorter. And we find it more apparent, more visible with students, with other people, with younger people, when they're always on their smartphone. They have to look at it all the time, they have to write something, they have to check Facebook and Messenger. I'm just afraid, at least in Austria, that this kind of addiction is not only a problem for students and for young people. It has affected the whole of society. So this is a kind of addiction, and it's no wonder that this addiction is there, because the psychologists at Facebook and YouTube, they are being paid to program their algorithms, their system, in a way that we are getting into a dopamine addiction. So this has a system. It's not just a result of our weakness or something, but it's really an addiction. It's like having sweets on the table all the time. Of course, there will be a time when we want to grab it, right? And that's the same and even worse with all these attention things. And so one of the challenges that we find here is that we somehow need to find ways to tame what I call the digital elephant. So the smartphone, of course, is a wonderful thing. We can use it for many things, communication, learning, teaching, training. But how can we tame it in a helpful way? So, I want to hand over to you and the exchange on the tables, and I would offer 3 questions. First, how do we experience some of these shadows? Global, local? But I'm assuming that you're discussing about the local shadows again and again already, so maybe you want to focus a bit more on the global shadows. How do we experience some of these global shadows already, and their consequences? So I've heard about a flood that was washing away schools. So, and you can say we have had floods for the last 100 years, all again and again, but at least in Austria we're having more floods now. So maybe there is a connection to climate change, and we are defining areas where we are not allowed to build new houses because the danger of floods is higher there, for example. So what kind of experience are you having? Second, how can we react and proactively act as businesses? So really focusing on captain, ship, iceberg. What is it that we can do? Where do we need to change ways? About how to teach, how to organize, what to teach, how to make money, what is our business model, etc., etc. And third, how can we prepare our students for this world, right? So let me hand over to you on the tables. The tables are quite big, and on some tables there are up to 10 people. Maybe it's not possible because of the noise to have a conversation on the whole table. Maybe you have pods, like small groups, like 3-4 people holding their heads together so that everybody can share. And please, I would recommend that before you start, that every person makes a short introduction so that you know each other, and then everybody gets a say and you can share and exchange. I would invite you to come back to a plenary exchange after 12 minutes. So after 12 minutes I will give you a sound, and then we come back, please, together in the plenary session. Thank you so much, and please exchange on the table.
From this table, as a representative, I'm Deepak Bhattrai. Regarding this first question, I want to focus on that. From that saddles, the impact or the consequences that we have felt. It might be in Nepal only, or it might be throughout the world, and might be in your country too. The iceberg have been melted, the volume of the water has been increased in the rivers, which is a big threat for the mountainous country like Nepal and an island like Maldives or Sri Lanka. In the process, to address that issue, our government once had a cabinet meeting in Sagarmatha base camp above there as well. So Maldives copied it and had the same meeting in underground meeting as well. To take the attention of the entire world. At the very beginning you had said, we are less responsible for that being a developing nation. So it becomes the responsibility of everyone. That is one thing I want to focus. Second, prolonged illness. It might be because of the globalization and its impact, climate change, I think. The mortality rates by such diseases have been increased, especially cancer and others. I think that is one thing we can feel in our society. Then climatic change, no normal, as you addressed before. That is another thing we feel. Like winter and summer seasons. The temperature has gone up. In Kathmandu also we can feel it for last 25 or 30 years and now. The winter season and the summer seasons changes in the climate that we can feel. The capacity of the resources is declining. Resources are limited. Their capacity is limited and their capacity is declining. We can feel it. And regarding the culture, values, the extinction of our local culture and tradition is one impact that you can see because of this saddle. I said good morning at the beginning. I didn't say namaste. My culture is to say namaste. It's extinct because of that. This is regarding number one question. Second number question, I want to come on that. Collaboration in globalized area is one thing I think we need to do. There is no way that unless we do the collaboration or unless we are united, it is possible to address these saddles. Being a single nation, it's not possible. That's why. Participation of workers. In case of business, if we want to connect it with our personal business, then participation of the workers. We are investors to some extent. I think we are here, whoever are here, we are invested. So if we want to continue our business, the big challenge we have known everyone. So let's involve the workers in our duty or financially or however it is possible so that we can be on our business always. Sharing of the cross culture, as we have been doing. You have been time and again saying I'm from Austria and we are from Nepal. We are sharing. It is necessary. You learn so many things from us and we learn so many things from you. That is needed in business as well because we are preparing the global citizen. And global citizen preparation means from every perspective, they must know or they must have the knowledge wherever they are going. So exchange of this matters. Develop the reading culture. Regarding this digitalization, because of digitalization, we are killing our culture of reading. Reading culture must be developed. Otherwise, not possible. And digital discipline. Having so many achievements or positive aspects of this digitalization, the negative aspect have more impact in our day-to-day life. So, digital discipline must be there. It is a storehouse. In a storehouse, so many things might not be good for us. Take the good things only. That is what we need. Regarding third, very shortly I want to conclude. Optimum utilizing the resources. We have to teach to the student. How can the resources be used at optimum level? No underuse, no overuse, no misuse, just optimum use. How can we do it? That is one thing. Exchange of culture and tradition, already I have said it. That is necessary for the students. Let the student teach to live a life, not to get a job. Don't make the student job seeker only. Let them to live a life. after completing a certain level of education, how can they lead their life? They don't go for searching the job only. Suppose I have completed the master's degree, I start searching the job. Let's not prepare that kind of student. Let's prepare how can they lead their life by themselves. That is the way. Thank you very much.
I just that represent this table and myself Pushparaj Simkhada from Sagarmatha Educational Academy. Regarding these three questions, we do have really very short review on the point. On first questions, we just would like to share. We really believe that 7 challenges, 7 shadows are still in Nepal too, but we are still far behind than that. So we are fighting not on that demography, climate change or other issues, but still we have to fight on the conditions of parents, economic conditions, and there are many more challenges than that. So we accept those challenges from our side. And on question 2, we just would like to say that we just hear many important things on panel discussions. So we just would like to that add something on that. On those things, what we can do is we just can create value on education, one thing. Number 2, we just have to create hope on all of us that maybe it may be student side, it may be parents and all other stakeholders. And third is that maybe Subhash sir focus on that holistic approach all the time. So we just focus on holistic approach of education. So that what we can do on question number 2, I guess. And on question number 3, that what we can do is the thing that we are proud, still we are far behind, but we are proud on what we're doing. Because we are the one who is creating not a Nepalese citizen only, we are the one who is creating global citizen. So that what we have been doing from long time. So that is one important thing. And the next thing is maybe we just have to continue things that almost everyone is doing good things that imitating what others doing. That and the now condition is I should not have to compete with my neighbor school all the time. Now the time is that if I see anything new in US, I should have to that imitate things or copy things what is happening in US or maybe what is happening on Germany or Austin. So that what is the thing. And so the thing in conclusion, what we just would like to share is we just have to copy good things what is happening around the world, and then that can be the things what we have to do ahead. Thank you.
Digitization has been one of the challenges that how can we make the reach of this digital power to everyone who can support, who can have that sort of digitization, let's say empowerment to the whole public or to all the private schools. That's not being means also not, source also not, ends also not. Only the job holders should create over. The private business holders should create this sort of thing. How is it possible? So all the products are westernized. Nepalese has nothing at all, nothing production. See over us, we are talking about value, ethnic, culture and everything else. We have different diverse values and cultures. Do we have any language? What about Mughal language students? Can they learn digitization? Okay, what about newer children? Can they have this access of this thing? So how can we access the digitization to all children is another one challenge that we have faced. Regarding the global challenge, up to now, let's say climate challenges, somehow we have realized but not much affecting, but divergence of values are there in the past. This is our resource and our resource, especially the government and our educational institutions. They should appreciate that diversity are the accept. These are the worth valuable things for us. It is the most important opportunity to learn knowledge from diverse fields. So it should be appreciated. Regarding the fragile international finance system, we were not much, let's say, applying in the school system, but it has been indirectly impacted. What does IMF does? What does World Bank does? What does this all, World Bank group does? We don't know this thing else, but that they have the impact, whatever the power, let's say, cost of the petroleum. So we can underline what are the value of dollars. These are different things in our school system. However, we have been affected with the cost of the parents. Whatever the capacity of their, the burning purchasing power. So this has been affected. That's why overall, if I just conclude that few of the points regarding the solution of this one, we need to have a value-added education. We need to have a Nepalese value, culture, and ethics and philosophical ideas of Western that should be incorporated in the education. So we need to have holistic education, not only for the modernization, not only for the practical, let's say, westernized education, but our own values, culture also should be emphasized. And school have a typical crisis. Those crises can be solved with this maybe collaborative approach, or cooperative approach, or merging the school nearby and making a system of values, so that can be one of the solutions. That can be overall integrated research in education. Research in education is most important. This has been lacking. That's why it just previously also talked about that universities being the, let's say, industry to, let's say, produce the unemployed human resource. Why? The question is that research has not been integrated in the education. It should be integrated so that new values, tones, elaboration, also everything can be involved. And that's what we need. Anyway, the value of education should be truth, goodness, and reality. Knowledge can be delivered from the same environment which we seek in the days to come up. And we must stop our brain drain and all those problems only because of creating the new values of education in Nepal, not in other one. That's all. Thank you very much.
Could they pay themselves, or can we find another person to pay for the need of the other person, right? So this is what we are smelling. And now let's go smelling through the 7 shadows and look for the opportunities, like we already heard a few of you also addressing opportunities. So let's do this together, right? So just give me a few ideas. It's just a brainstorming session now for 6 minutes. First, demography. What could be the business opportunities of this demography you're having? Less children, more old people. What are the business opportunities? Forget the business you're having now. Okay? You're just wonderful business people. What is the opportunity in demography?
Because of the number of population, the market expands.
Yes,
There's
so
big opportunity.
more people, more market,
better market,
more
better
food.
production, better economic growth.
Wonderful. What else?
If they are active, and most of the people, they are abroading towards another country for the job and employment. That's why they are sending the remittance also, and we have got a huge amount of the remittance in the GDP. It's around 28 to 30%. So ultimately it helps for the private school.
Okay.
Because if the people have got the money, they can send their children towards the school, then it will be supportive for us. And other things, now we are
Just
talking.
a small brainstorm.
Okay, now we are talking about the brain drain and its student migration. According to the data of the IOM, 2018 and 19, 63,259 people are the students they have migrated towards another country for the abroad study, and the 40,985.7 million money, Nepalese money, is outflow towards another country. Okay, and we have got another, but we are also getting the huge amount of the remittance from the foreign student migrations, and they are also they are also sending the social remittance. It means the good norms and values, whatever they learn in abroad. So we have to utilize such kinds of their knowledge and skills, and in our school sector, in our development sector. And another thing is that around 5 to 10 lakh students are abroad now, and it is also known as the diaspora. So the government should make the proper ties with the rules and regulation and policy for the diaspora management, which ultimately helps for the development of the country. Thank you.
Thank you. People in care. Do you have enough people in care with enough tuition, enough education and skills for care? To also look at the opportunities at the end, right? So not just to fall into depression, but also to look at the things that can be taken as opportunities. And The title of the session is called Schools as the Garden of the New Good Life. So what do I mean with the good life? We have been talking about this a bit. So the good life, making a distinction between the ends, so the materials, so infrastructure, money, car, etc. All this is necessary, but it's probably not the purpose of my good life. So what is it that I really want to have out of it? And what I want to share now first is what I now, after having been here for a few days, would call the Western version. So this is also what you find here in the workbook. So the Western version contains 4 ingredients, and I will first share the Western version, what I call, and it could be that you find that these ingredients are also helpful for you. Could be. But I will also share afterwards something where it's more, where I think I learned something about your culture. This is one overview picture. This is another overview picture that you also find here on the wall. And now I come to it step by step for each color. What you see is that at the very left corner or fringe, you see that there is the over-exaggeration, the not extreme helpful element. So if we take what I call here the red energy, then people would look at the shadows or look at your problems and then panic. You know? This is not helpful. But they take things somehow seriously, but they take it too seriously. So they no longer can work, they no longer function, they just panic. They're in panic mode. In another session we have been talking about comfort zone, growth zone, learning zone, and panic zone. So if you're in the panic zone, you don't learn anything. You cannot develop. So this would be too much. But taking things seriously as you're doing it, looking at with open eyes to potential icebergs that may be colliding with our ship is a good thing. And I'm saying this because a lot of people are either panicking or other people are just closing their eyes. And this, of course, would be the next over-exaggeration. So the blue energy here in this system, the exaggeration says, oh, come on, it will work out by itself. I don't need to do anything. The other day we saw a goat on a motorcycle, right? And there is a story about a goat, or in this other story it's about a turkey. You know, in America, United States, they have the celebration with the turkey, and the turkey gets fed each day. And the turkey says, oh, each day is getting better. I'm getting food, I'm growing healthy, life is good, you know? He does not see the iceberg coming that, you know? And this would be the exaggeration. It will work out by itself. Life is good. It's getting better every day. Where's the problem? And also the goat is no longer alive, probably, that we have seen yesterday, right? So how can we adapt early enough? This is the red energy. But how can we at the same time use a bit of this blue energy and say, okay, now we have just been working on the shadows and strategies and business models and what can we do? What do we need to change? And after that, we are coming together and eating, and drinking, and singing, and dancing, and enjoying life. Because a lot of times I realize how people, at least in the West, and I think you have more talent for the good life, I think. But at least in the West, we see a lot of people who say, I want to have a good life, and therefore I need to do this and this and this, and they are doing this for 60, 70 hours a week. Running after a good life, but never sitting, never enjoying the moment. So how can we, on the one hand, take things seriously, and on the other hand, really have equanimity, savoring the moment, really enjoying life, so that we're not forgetting what is really all. So this is the first balance, the first integration of polarities, I think, that is necessary. Then comes the orange energy in this model. And the orange energy, which is somehow connected to what I call modernity. The modernity believes a lot in technology and in money. And if we are over-believers, so if we are doing the not helpful extreme, then we would say, technology will save us. So what could we say in your situation? What would you say in our situation? Okay, now we have renewable energies, right? We can produce some kind of hydrogen electricity energy systems. We will have sustainable technological systems here. We have artificial intelligence, so technology will just save us. We only need more engineers. I don't believe it, right? So we have a limited globe. Somebody just did not do the right calculations. It's not working. So technology will not save us alone. But does it mean that we don't need any innovation? I think we really need a lot of innovation. Technological innovation, but also social innovation. How can we work together cooperatively in peace? We just talked also about peace. How can we do this? And not just compete, but also work together. Western capitalism is working in many areas quite well, and competition is a central element, a mechanism that helps to keep quality at a certain level. You know, if you just have a monopoly, then quality will sink. That's also one of my concerns about closing down the private schools. Even if you had enough public schools, even if you had, the danger is that the quality also in good public schools could go down because they don't feel your competition. But that's just my private opinion. But so competition is in some areas a good thing. But is competition a good thing in all areas? You being here together, I heard we are one. So you are one. Yes, you also are somehow competitors, but you're also partners. We have this artificial word, co-appetition. So cooperation and competition, and really looking how we can balance this wisely to use the benefits of competition where it's helpful, but to cooperate where it's better to cooperate. So this is something where we need to learn a lot and we need to innovate, but not just in the field of technology, but then also in the social field. The fourth ingredient, which is green here, the extreme would be, let's turn back the wheel. Let's go into the caves and let's go 2 centuries back when everything was okay. We didn't have any electricity, closing down the internet, closing the borders. At least for Austria, and I think also for your country, that's too late. It's no longer possible, and I wouldn't want it, neither for me nor for my children. We are sometimes forgetting in the West how life was, when life expectancy was 35 years, when half of the children were dying after birth, when 1/5 of the women were dying giving birth, etc., etc., domestic violence. So this is not a time where we want to go back. At the same time, what can in this model, the green energy teach us? Questioning needs. So what I was trying to point to before about the good life and the new good life. So questioning our needs. What is it that we really want? The orange energy, technology, modernity, has forgotten about ends and means. So they're looking a lot at status and money and success in the financial form. Here with this green energy, my question would be, what is really important? Do I need another this? In the West we have, there are calculations about the items, the number of items a household contains. Just each item, one thing. And they were calculating this, that an average household, what would you reckon, how many items a regular household contains? So one spoon would be an item, one book would be an item. The calculation was 30,000. Incredible. And our household definitely contains more. So there are so many items, and my question is, with this green energy, do I really need this? And imagine there is a reduction in wealth. What is it that I would want to keep, and what is it that I can let go? At the moment, a lot of Westerners think we all need this. Life will be horrible if we would have less. And of course, the whole thing about the good life, new good life is what is really important and what can we let go if necessary. The second, so questioning needs, and the second here is connection to nature. My assumption is that many people, at least a bit outside Kathmandu, are still in good connection with nature. They feel the rain, they feel the sun, they know what good soil is, they know what plants need, etc. At least in our cities, maybe also in Kathmandu, we have lost connection to energy, to nature. So for our children, I'm trying to make small things. So having a salad here and having an apple tree there, and just to enable that our children are somehow feeling the connection to nature, that they don't believe that milk is being made in a factory, and that the meat comes out of an industry fabric. So there is life out there, and we are also part of this life. So I think you have more talent still for this connection, but in Austria, in the Western world, we need to relearn the understanding that nature is not outside, but that we are part of this nature system. So these are the 4 ingredients for a new good life as a Western version. And my assumption is, and what I have seen also, is that also in your country you have people who, for them, maybe this version is not so bad. Maybe it's helpful for some of the people. And at least, again, for the Western countries, if we want to have any chance to tackle these 7 shadows, we need these approaches. Because otherwise, if we just think with technology we can save everything, or if we say, oh, let's go back into tradition and everybody becomes a farmer again or something, this will not work. We just will have escalation. So we will have to balance these different colors. So this is the Western version. And now, of course, comes my suggestion, my impulse for what I think you could be helpful as a starting point for discussion. You hear how I'm trying to be careful and not to tell you your solution, but really to say this is to be developed in Nepal, by Nepalis, for Nepal, and then this can be a blessing for Nepal and for the world. So I'm really convinced that with the ingredients, with the raw materials you're having in your system, that this can be a blessing for the whole world. So what I'm giving is an outside perspective. The metaphor that I want to use is one around soil. So if we want to plant anything that is alive, somehow needs soil. Every plant needs soil, and every animal then later needs some plants. So there is a circle. Without soil, no life. And we also need something like concrete. So if we want some kind of buildings, and not live in huts, but we want to live in buildings like this, then we need something like concrete. So let me ask you the question now. What is more important, soil or concrete?
Soil.
And I would have hoped that some of you would have said, this is a wrong question. Of course, it's a wrong question. We need both, right? Sorry. But you can argue that without soil there is no life. Without soil, no roots, right? So, and now you see the metaphor. When I see it's not just about nature and soil, but of course it's about something like tradition. So I'm seeing what you're having in your country as soil. There's a lot of soil here. Our Western countries look a lot like this. So we have values, and we have a lot of culture. But I'm not sure if people would feel that there is soil. People live in Austria, my children live in Austria, but they feel more like global citizens, at least like Europeans. They wouldn't have a stronger commitment to Austria than to, I don't know, Netherlands. It's just another place. And of course there are differences, but there is not a clear soil. But without no concrete, there is no development. So we know how cultures look like if they go backwards. We did not see this in the last 100 years. But if you study cultures, if you study how the Romans, the city of Rome had, I think, 1 million people. 1 million people around Christ. and it went back to I think 30,000. And we had in South and Latin America, there were cultures destroyed not only by the Spaniards, but also because of drought and other climate problems. And again and again, so we had this, that cultures were not only going up, but going down. So what we need, of course, is soil and enough concrete. My suggestion as a thinking is, how can we differentiate to integrate? So this is my, sorry, I need to go back so that you can listen to my words. I think this is not in the paper, but the more I learn about your culture, I hopefully understand also my own culture a bit better. And what I learned is we need to differentiate, to see the differences, and not just to see one porridge, but to see the diversity, to make differences, to then bring it together, integrate, but not to make another porridge, but to have the plurality in some kind of integration. And so my question is, how can we enable successful integration? And that is, and therefore is necessary to put some things into the museum. So what did we put into museum? Where we had physical punishment in our schools. We had it. We had the culture of closing in students, pupils, into very small chambers without any light for hours. Torture. Yeah, we had this. And this is, hopefully, now in the museum. So what kind of things are in the museum? Things that we are not proud of today, which was part of some kind of development, but now it's over. And there are other things that are in the museum that we find somehow nice, lovely, but which are no longer the right thing to do. So people were going with horses, and this was somehow nice, right? But it's in the museum now. So there are things that are nice and not so nice in the museum. This is one element. The other thing is, how can we avoid, you remember what I said? I said, how can you avoid making the same mistakes as we did? And how can we learn, if one person runs this way and falls into a trap, that you run the same way, but that you choose another way? So how can we avoid the road to some kind of collapse? And this is part of what we in the Western world had to do, and I'm not saying that we are doing it very well. I think we put too many things into the museum, but tradition as a straitjacket is part of what I would call the museum. It should be there, right? So what are the elements that are holding you back, that are holding young people back, that are holding women back, that are holding businesses back? There are some elements of tradition that you want to differentiate and say, this, can we please put this into a museum, like punishment, like domestic violence, etc. And the other extreme, how can we not go there where some other countries went, that money is God, technology is God, that this is also not a helpful extreme, right? And you already know, so this is for the museum, this is the road to escalation and collapse. So how can we enable some kind of integration, some kind of coming together? And my assumption is, and I think this is what I heard from the panel discussion as well, how can we integrate what I call in this metaphor roots and soil? So connection with culture, connection with community, connection with nature. You have so many wonderful rituals in your country, and it's how can we keep them alive and teach them to our children without showing them that this is something of the past, but also giving them the feeling that this is alive and this is something that we cherish and that they want to continue with. So it's difficult, right? So because they will try and say, you just want to put me into a straitjacket. So how can we, together with young people, with all together, how can we have difficult conversations and saying, what is it that we want to put into the museum, and what is it that we want to cherish and nourish? And of course, there is also an orange element to integrate. So how can we have some kind of development? some kind of success. You were using the term success. What is success for you? So I think it's important that we have goals in this modern society. It's important that we have some kind of freedom, and we are not only collective but also individual. And as you well know, that we as Western cultures, we were tipping towards the individualistic side. So that many people have lost their living connection to their family, core family and bigger family. But how can you enable this healthy balance between individuality and collective thinking? There is what I heard a lot is that in the conversations I had the impression when people were talking about values, and it's the same in Austria and the same I think here, then they would refer to values being part of this blue layer, right? So the values are coming from tradition. I recommend that you see it wider. I recommend that you see that there are values in both spheres. So of course there are values in the blue sphere, right? Family, respect, community, nature, maybe spirituality, etc., right? But what are the modern values that we take for granted already, that we would not want to let go of? So you have some freedom, right? Did everybody of you ask your father if you're allowed to go here today? I don't think so, right? Did the women here have to, I don't know, fill a form and their husband said you're allowed to go here? Hopefully not. Etc., etc. So there's some kind of freedom here. If you want to open a business tomorrow, does your religious authority needs to give you a blessing? Not necessarily, right? But it's good if I have a blessing, but it's not necessary. And so we need all kinds of values also from the orange world and not just from the blue world. So I would recommend that you, what I called, differentiate between what is too much and therefore for the museum, or what we do not want to integrate, what would be the road to escalation. So differentiate and then integrate what is healthy. This would be my recommendation, so that you can establish a love for tradition and for modernity. But I'm not sure if you also have this in German language, we say love is blind. Do you also have the same? So what I recommend is some, as I call, critical love. Okay? So I love Hikmat and Hikmat loves me, I think. Okay? But he's critical of me. Thank God. So he does not believe everything. And sometimes he questions me and says, are you sure? Or there's something missing, right? And the other way around. So this is critical love. And it's the same for tradition, differentiation, the same for modernity, differentiation, integration. So, I will share now questions and then I will have a request. So my question first is, how can we critically love tradition and modernity, sorting elements into the museum, while avoiding the road to escalation and enabling integration? So it's not oil and water separate, but some kind of integration. And how can this integration help us to handle Seven Shadows and other challenges as businesses and as educators? So I find challenging questions. And I said I had a request. Some of you are sitting in the same order as before the lunch break. So you know what is coming. Could you please stand up and find a new table that you sit together with new people and go into exchange? So please get up, find a new table, and then start exchange. Thank you.
These demographic problems can be solved if we integrate this marriage system. Similarly, there are some other integrations also we can make. That is, it can add to economical problems also. Means it can solve some economical problems also. If we make our education system with integration, then we will have to consume less time. Like our ma'am Anju Bhattrai, he was saying that Sanskar Yug Shiksha. Yes, means values about our traditions. We have to teach our kids about our values also, about our traditions also, and we have the curriculum also. हाम्रो छुट्टै curriculum पनि छ. We have our separate curriculum prescribed by the government, and we think that values, traditions are also important. And if we start teaching both things separately, it will consume time. Yes? But if we integrate these two things together, it will consume less time, and saving time is saving money. Yes, generating money. So in the recent future, we can develop the habit of integration to generate economics or to generate finances. Thank you.
Talking about the very first question, how can you critically love your tradition and modernity? I'll be very short in this. Our critical love to tradition would be like looking back to our culture, our traditional practices in such a way that not just as a rituals, not just as a superstitious practices, rather separating science and rituals from there. What is happening at present is all the traditional practices are tagged as superstitions. Right? But there is science. There is a big science in our tradition. Critically looking at that, we can sort out what are the taboos, what are the malpractices, what are not practical. We can sort them out and keep in museum. At least our coming generation will, visualize, yes, it was there in our past. But what is scientific that can be brought into the curriculum and they can be integrated into the day-to-day activities, pedagogical activities. And what we need to inculcate is all traditional things are good or bad, or all modern things are good or bad. That has to be sorted out. It's not that everything traditional is bad, everything modern is good. No. There are certain things where we have to filter. Okay? So what I think is we have to filter from both ways. We have to filter the practical things and integrate them into our daily life, and sort out those impractical things and keep them in museums so that they will continue, but in different way. Thank you very much.
And we need to put those things in the museum. But naturally, woman has to bear the babies. Man cannot do that. In Western culture, single mother culture is decreasing, it's growing. Children do not know who is his or her father. In this context, if women rights start to say we do not need man in their life, it will impact entire demographic as a shadow and the natural system and social values and norms. That is what we discussed. Thank you.
It's a good thing. We need to carry out. Faith for God is a good thing. We need to carry out. But it is to be put in the museum that we need to leave home and go for penance. Live the homely life. It is to be put in museum. It is to be abandoned. Even in the modern things, we can use the digitization for better knowledge to make the life more easier. But addiction of digitization is bad. We need to balance it critically. Therefore, abandoning the excess of anything, even modern or even in traditional things.
And you look, for example, at the question of attention span for students. How could you do this? Not just from the Western Orange perspective, but if you integrate well, how can you support your students, maybe also the adults, to come up with a healthy mind? How would you do this? How can we integrate? And you in your culture, I'm just waiting for hands, you can interrupt me, but you in your culture still have access to yoga, to meditation, to body practices, right? We don't have this. In our culture, it would be totally out of the question, either in a public school or in a private school, to pray in school. It can be an exemption if you are a Catholic, as a Christian school. But even there, not only the parents and the children, but also the teachers are secularized. Few of them have their roots still in Christianity, although it's a Christian school, because it's already so far away. So if I would be a teacher there, and let's say I have an hour of mathematics, okay? And I realize that all the students are kind of not focused. You could say, okay, you remember at the beginning of the year we were having a ritual, how to focus, how to concentrate, 3 minutes of some kind of guided meditation, connecting mind, spirit, heart, whatever you're doing. So you can install this ritual, and then you can do this for 3 minutes, and after 4 minutes you can focus better on mathematics. We could not do this with a spiritual background. You can still do this. What we would need to do, we would need to have some kind of secularized version of meditation or whatever, or training. But you still have connection to this soil. And what I'm hearing is that some of you are doing this. So this would be one of the things, for example. Well, also, we know how hard it is to get away from addictions of all different kinds. Substances, alcohol, etc. But also behavior, gambling, smart drive addiction, internet addiction, pornography addiction, etc. So there are many addictions in the Western world. And my assumption is that we have now learned something about how to handle this better from a therapeutic way. But the approaches that I know are all Western. And I'm sure that you in your culture have approaches from Buddhism, from Hinduism, I don't know if Confucianism or other approaches, where you can complement these helpful Western approaches with your own flavor, so that not everything is touching and feeling and smelling from the West and will from your traditional body be rejected, but that people can integrate and accept it better. It's just one of the small things, but I would invite you that you continue in this direction, what I'm already hearing, how you are integrating this. But we could also look at other questions here of strong focus on grades, for example. So the strong focus on grades is, funny enough, coming partly from people who have a traditional background sometimes, families, but their aspiration is towards modernity. They want to have their children, that they have a better life, somehow, apparently. And if I may, I'm just waiting for hands to interrupt me, but if I may, I'm going back to the question of going abroad. So what I hear is, I'm hearing a lot of stories about brain drain. Also, I think today you were mentioning this already. And I would give you 4 different stories that I find difficult, but that are prevalent, that are around us. One story is, if you leave our country, you betray us. You're not a proud citizen of Nepal because we have invested so much money and so much energy and so much love into you. And I'm a mother or I'm a father, and you betray us, and I need you to stay here for my old age, or whatever it is. Second would be the total opposite. I'm so proud that you're going. Or I would talk to my neighbor and say, I have a son in Canada. Okay? You're having this also?
Yeah.
So, next story. From young people and from women, what I'm hearing is, I'm stuck here. I have no opportunities here, either financially, success, something, career, but also I need to marry. They're telling me I need to marry. I don't want to marry. I see my mother, I see my aunts, what kind of life they're having. I don't want to have this life, so I will go. Okay? So I'm stuck here. Fourth, the private schools are responsible for the brain drain. You are the traitors of our society. I'm sorry. You understand what I'm joking, okay? But this could be a story, right?
No, it's a reality.
It's a reality?
No reality, but they accuse us.
Yes, they accuse us, but it's not a reality. And if you would just be cunning business persons, you could even give a guarantee. You could make it a business model and say, come to us, in 10 years' time, you will have a job abroad. And we are cooperating with all kinds of international companies, that you're coming here, you're doing good exams, getting good grades, and then we recommend you to all kinds of companies, agencies in Canada, Australia, whatever. And you could kind of guarantee to the parents, give me your 10-year-old, in 10 years' time, they will send you money. But I'm just offering, and please define your own story. Comes in 2 parts. The first part would be the orange, the modern part. Yes, I want to learn from others. We have heard about globalization in contrast to colonialization, right? So globalization can be defined as something positive, and yes, we want to learn from other countries, and that means I, as a young person, I can learn from others about knowledge, skills, but also how to live a life that I like and I want. Okay, so I can go, but I also want to come back at the moment, yeah? And so I want to come back because, I am building the country, I have some passion for the country. But if this would be all, if you tell me as a young person, you need to come back to build your country, I'm not sure if I would come, really. Would you? So if this is everything, I wouldn't believe it. But also, I have a good life here. And my assumption is that if you make me a young person, if I would be an old person, if you make me as a young person, tell, please come back. A, we want you for the country, yes. But we also believe that together, you and me, we can build a place where you have a good life. For you, for your family. A good life that is enabling you, on the one hand, you remember the blue thing, roots, connection, culture, etc. And you don't feel as much isolated as you may have felt in Australia, United States, other countries. Because of course a lot of young people feel very isolated. I was studying in Great Britain, in England, 30 years ago. And there I was meeting a guy from Pakistan. He was so depressive. He felt so lost, and he then could explain to me what was happening, because in his culture he was used that if somebody was new, the other people would come and integrate him. And this was an individualistic culture, and if you would not try and seek connection, you would just be alone. And he got depressive. So my assumption is that you can tell also your people, your young people, you will find a lot of good things out there, and please bring knowledge, etc. back. But there is something that we still have, soil, that you can, that is special here, that you will not find somewhere else. And yes, we know we need to develop this soil, museum, etc. But this is good soil. How can we do this together? So this is my hope, that we can generate this passion for the country, for community, for nature, for culture, and see that it is not less than the Western countries, but that it has even more, or at least different, but not less than Western countries. Of course, you need to start this flame of longing for and passion for my own good life and for the country before I'm leaving. So the moment I'm gone, it's just my inner story. And if I feel that it is very attractive in the United States or in Europe or somewhere else, I will just stay. So how can you start this longing for this good life here in Nepal before I go out, so that I really want to come back? And then it could be a good thing that young people say and parents say, this is a good school, and there I get the opportunity to go out, and I get enough vision and wings to fly back. Does somebody want to comment in large before we go into the next short bio break?
What about the pulling factor and pushing factors in this context?
Yes, the pulling factor, meaning what is pulling the person back?
Yeah, because if you talk about the system itself, it is pushing you out from the country.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So maybe we should also think about this when we discuss about it.
Yes.
And pushing factor, these are pushing us out from the country.
Yes.
Politics, corruption.
Yes. So I will try and not talk anything about politics here in public. I've heard that this is very impolite and not my thing, but I'm hearing that you may have similar problems that we're also having in Austria. So we are going into a short bio break for 10 minutes. We start again at 25. Please already get yourself a new place after the break. So another mixing of tables, please. 10 minutes bio break. Thank you.
That is the style that I have. And regarding my battery, I'm really very emotional person. So I get distracted also. Sometimes if someone says me, some small thing also, yes, I get very disheartened and maybe I try to keep a little bit of distance, right? So that is my battery that I need to improve on, or at least I need to upgrade myself into Moon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I always like to learn and listen. Right? When I've completed my master's in mathematics, I joined B.Ed because I want to learn more. Some people commented also, oh, she hasn't done anything, now she's learning. I said, I don't care. Then after that, I did my master's in education. After that, now I'm doing MPhil. So I like to learn and listen to the people and all, whatever they say.
Yeah.
That's my stars, I think.
Yeah.
And my battery is, whatever I learn and I understand and all, I never put them into the words. I should be writing them all the time.
Yeah.
But I just listen, I learn, I understand something, but it's not recorded.
Yeah.
That's the battery.
Applied. Thank you so much.
I'm critical. I don't easily accept the statement until I find it logically connected.
Yeah.
Another thing is I'm inquisitive. I have inquisitiveness.
Yeah.
I want to ask more questions.
Yeah.
I want to learn things. And batteries, even the trivial things make me happy. I think this is my battery.
Thank you. I'm not easily satisfied with these answers. Of course, I have the job as my developmental step to balance this. And why I'm coming back to the question why I'm so much focused on these stars, moons, batteries, and superpower. First, it's a door opener to talk about personal things, because this is part of our professional work. We are different, so how can we develop the ability to talk about these personal questions? Second, of course, you are not any businessmen and women, you are teachers also. So when we talk about how can we support these different plants that are growing in your school gardens, students, they also have their stars, moons, batteries, they have their superpowers. How can they be aware of their speciality and develop their raw materials, their gems, into jewels? So this, of course, is again and again my question. So there is one element, and could you tell me the number of the page where it is in your workbook? 35. So 35 is an overview of the so-called orientation canvas. And it's for me, I would love to share this just briefly, because this is something I find more and more helpful for organizations to establish something like common reality, shared reality. Let's imagine that I am your director, principal, boss, whatever it is, and you're my employees. And I just tell you, do this, or do this, and then do this. Oh no, this is wrong. You don't get a bigger picture of where we are going, what is really important for us, etc. And so this overview of fields, these 11 fields, if they are filled out briefly with a few words, then looking at this as an employee of yours, I would feel, this is where we are going. This is really important for us. So what is the purpose of your organization? Give me one sentence, okay? What are your principles? What are your critical qualities? And this could be all kinds of things, but for example, a critical quality could be, we nourish a growth mindset. We nourish the love to learn. Or we have critical love to tradition and modernity, whatever it is. But what are your principles? What are your principles, and what are what I call golden eggs? So a golden egg is something that is easily shattered, but it is very precious. What are your strong rules? So in some organizations there are very clear rules about plagiarism, so things not being copied somewhere from the internet and used one-to-one. So this is a very hard thing to do. Or you may have other rules. about behavior. So what is it that is allowed or not allowed in your school? I had, as an example, when he was asking me about my superpowers, I was using the example of key performance indicators of numbers. And so these would be the numbers. What are the numbers where we are realizing and saying this is success? These are critical. What are internal developments? What's going on in our organization? What are the biggest problem in the field? And now you see maybe here, I'm not sure if you see it, 7, 8, and 9 are here in the colorful version. In the color version are of a different color. So 7, 8, 9 look outside. So what is going on in the field? And it could be that you're talking about your local shadows and the global shadows and what's happening with the parents and all kinds of stuff. So what is happening outside? What are the problems? Who are the most important stakeholders? And what else are developments that need to be taken into considerations? As I said, shadows and other stuff. And now fields 10 and 11, they're like the culmination where it's all coming together. If we look at our organization, what is it that we all need to learn? Not just one individual, but we as a system. So for example, some organizations at the moment in Austria, they need to learn to live well with reduced resources, less employees, less money. How can we still thrive and be alive, an organization that is alive and not complain all day long? So this is something that some people, organizations need to learn. Others need to learn how to use technology well as a team, etc., etc. So what are a few of these things to be learned? Or we need to learn to look for more business opportunities that are coming out of problems, for example. So what are the things that we want to learn? And now, of course, the last one, the number 11, is the most important, I think. So 1 and 11 are the most important. First, what is our purpose? And the arc from 1 to 11, where's the direction we are going? So we want to become, I don't know, an educational center for people of all ages. Could be your strategic direction, right? I'm not sure if you have this already, but if you, maybe you want to say, in 5 years' time, we want to offer things for students, people from the age of 3 to 93, okay? Everybody can learn here under different circumstances. So if this is your strategic direction, I, as your employee, as your strategic partner, as your stakeholder, I would know where you want to go. And this could give me some kind of orientation and direction that I know where, how, and where can I support. I think I've heard, I think it was today here in the panel discussion, the aspect of how can we make our employees, how can we let them participate? I think this was the phrase that was used. Do I remember correctly? I think it was from the man here sitting on the panel. Was it true? Did he say something about participation of employees? Financially and otherwise. I think this was the phrase. And so this is the otherwise. It's not about financial participation, but it would be like I let you participate in the big picture, and I'm working with this in different ways in organizations. Sometimes I would just talk to the leadership person, and together I would help him or her to write this, and then he or she would share it with the team. Okay, we have another version where there is a leadership team, and we in the leadership team would work, have a final version, and share it with the rest of the organization. But we have also had things where the leadership team would define a first version and then discuss it with everybody. And they would criticize, they would make suggestions, all the teachers, and thereby would feel that they are part of the whole. And then we would hear this, and then of course the leadership team makes the decision what they write into this canvas, into this board. And after 6 months, you can imagine what is happening. After 6 months, we are reviewing this and checking whether it's still valid or whether we want to update it. So this is better, I think, as if you would have 20 pages of strategy written in a document. Nobody will read it, at least not in Austria. So we need to have one-page overviews to have it on our pin board on the wall and say, this is our thing, this is important, this is where we want to go. So this is something that was very dear to my heart, and thank you for letting me share this. I think Eden is a good partner and a good source for deepening conversation and question if you want to go deep. Power and the energy that I'm seeing here, also to your sense of decisiveness and your commitment that you're having not only for your businesses but for the students, the parent and the society. And let us on the one hand look clearly at the problems that are there, but never forget, as your colleague also shared, let us also look always on the positive things and at the opportunities. Thank you so much.
Ideas can be generated and developed in the coming days to all the participants from his inspiring presentation. We are near to the end of today's program. That's why I'd like to call Modraj Pandey, Director of Eden, to offer a gift to Bernard Posut. Please, Bernard Posut, come here to receive your gift. यसलाई सफल पार्नको निमित्त आफ्नो अमूल्य समय खर्चिएर आजको कार्यक्रममा दिनभर अत्यन्त ध्यानपूर्वक आफ्ना महत्त्वपूर्ण कामहरूलाई बिर्सिएर आजको यो कार्यक्रमलाई भव्य रूपमा सफल पारिदिनु हुने आदरणीय व्यक्तित्वज्यूहरूमा हार्दिक नमन व्यक्त गर्दै उहाँहरूको सम्मानमा उहाँहरूले एडिनको बामे सर्दै गरेको यात्रामा देखाइदिनु भएको सहकारी र हातेमालोको निमित्त हामी हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त गर्न चाहन्छौँ। र यसै सन्दर्भमा एडिनका डाइरेक्टर विनोद बाबु ढकाल सरलाई म उपस्थित सम्पूर्णमा धन्यवाद ज्ञापन गरिदिनुको निमित्त हार्दिक आग्रह गर्दछु।
थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच बलराम भट्ट सर। इडिनद्वारा आयोजित एक दिने यो गोष्ठीमा विभिन्न विद्यालयबाट पाल्नु हुने प्रिन्सिपल सर म्याडमहरू, डाइरेक्टरज्यूहरू, इडिनका लाइफ मेम्बर र डाइरेक्टर सर म्याडमहरू सम्पूर्णलाई हामी कार्यक्रमको लगभग अन्तिम छेडमा आइपुगेका छौँ। मलाई यहाँहरूसँग 2-3टा कुराहरू चाहिँ सेयर गर्न मन लागेको छ। म बोल्दिनँ लामो त। तैपनि इडिन भन्ने संस्था 2020 को डिसेम्बरबाट सुरुवात गरेर आजसम्म आइपुग्दा हामी सप्ताहव्यापी कार्यक्रममा थियौँ। आज यो एक हप्ताको सबभन्दा लास्टको कार्यक्रम हामी एन्डिङ गर्दैछौँ। हामीले थुप्रै क्षेत्रमा चाहिँ यस्तै प्रकारको वर्कसपहरू सञ्चालन गरिरहेका छौँ। मलाई के लाग्छ भने एक दिनको वर्कसपले यहाँले केही कुराहरू पक्कै पनि सिक्नु भएको छ। सबै कुरा फरक हुन सक्छ किनकि हाम्रा लेन्सहरू फरक छन्, हाम्रा सोचाइहरू फरक छन्। हामीले अहिले डाइभर्स कम्युनिटीको कुरा आइरहेको छ। हामी डाइभर्स पिपुल, हाम्रा डिफ्रेन्ट इन्ट्रेस्टहरू छन्। हामी डिफ्रेन्ट कुवाको पानी खाएर यस हलभित्र आएका छौँ। हाम्रो अर्गनाइजको स्ट्रक्चर डिफ्रेन्ट छ, त्यसले गर्दा केही असहजताहरू चाहिँ भयो होला। तर म एउटा कुरामा के विश्वस्त छु भने माइन्ड ओपनिङ डायलग चाहिँ तपाईँहरूले सुरुवात गर्नुहुन्छ होला जस्तो लाग्छ, जहाँ कन्भर्सेसन र डायलगबाट धेरै कुराहरूको चाहिँ सल्युसन प्राप्त हुनेछ, जुन आजको प्रेजेन्टेसनमा हामीले यो कुरा देख्न पायौँ। आई वुड लाइक टु थ्याङ्क्स बर्नार्ड पोसाट फर यर वन्डरफुल प्रेजेन्टेसन, वन्डरफुल सेसन, र सम्पूर्ण साथीहरूलाई जुन इडिनको निम्तलाई स्वीकार गरेर हाम्रो यो एउटा यङ जेनेरेसनले जुन काम गरिरहेको छ, केही कुरा पक्कै पनि सिक्न सकिन्छ भन्ने जुन यहाँहरूको अभिलाषा पुरा गर्न त हामीले सकेनौँ होला, तैपनि एउटा परिवार सम्झेर एउटा कोठाभित्र लामो समय राखेर जुन कुराहरू यहाँले सुनिदिनु भयो, त्यसैले गर्दा पनि हलमा उपस्थित सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरूका लागि आफैलाई एकचोटि ताली बजाएर यो हललाई गुन्जयमान बनाइदिनु हुन हार्दिक अनुरोध गर्दछु। समय फरक छ, हामीलाई मोबाइल छ हातमा अनि हाम्रा विभिन्न किसिमका फोनहरू आइरहन्छन्। हामी एक ठाउँमा बस्न नसक्ने भएका छौँ अनि हाम्रा जुन किसिमका भनाइहरू राख्नका लागि हामी आतुर छौँ। तर के लाग्छ भने मलाई डायलगमा चाहिँ छिटो बोल्नुभन्दा पनि केही सोचेर, हाम्रो बुढाबाबाले भन्नुहुन्थ्यो सोच्दाखेरि 1 मिनट सोचेर बोल्यो भने धेरै कुराहरू चाहिँ तपाईँको हुन्छ भन्ने जुन कन्सेप्ट छ, त्यसले गर्दा डायलग कन्भर्सेसनमा बस्ने गरौँ। र इडिनको लागि जुन माया गरेर यहाँसम्म आइदिनु भयो, इडिनले गरेको कार्यक्रममा तपाईँहरूको इन्ट्रेस्ट अथवा तपाईँले राख्नुभएको अब्जेक्टिभ यो सेसनमा पुरा नहुन पनि सक्छ। आई होप हामीले अर्को सेसनमा हामीले पुरा गर्नेछौँ। यहाँहरूको माया, सद्भाव अनि प्रेम जुनीसम्म रहिरहोस्
भन्ने बाचा गर्दै सम्पूर्ण उपस्थित मामाहरू जो फोटो खिचेर हामीलाई हेल्प गर्नुभएको छ, अहिले पत्रकार साथी आउनुभएको थियो, उहाँले भिडियो खिचेर लिएर जानुभएको छ, यो हल उपलब्ध गराइदिएको छ, हायत होटलले अनि हामीलाई खाना दिएको छ, जहाँ पैसा दिए पनि त्यो सेवा हो भन्छु म। त्यसले गर्दा हामीले पढाएर पैसा लिन्छौँ, त्यो पनि सेवै हो। यी सबै सेवा दिने सेवाग्राहीहरूप्रति पनि इडिनका तर्फबाट हार्दिक हार्दिक धन्यवाद ज्ञापन गर्दै उपस्थित सम्पूर्ण मामाहरूलाई मेरो व्यक्तिगत र इडिनका तर्फबाट पुनः धन्यवाद व्यक्त गर्दै मेरो भनाइ अन्त्य गर्छु। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद इडिन डाइरेक्टर विनोद ढकाल सर। हामी निश्चय नै कृतज्ञ छौँ, किनकि हाम्रा वामेश्वरदेखिका पाइलामा यहाँहरूको सहकारी र सद्भाव सदैव आवश्यक रहनेछ र यहाँले देखाइ पनि रहनु भएको छ र आगामी दिनमा पनि हामी यहाँहरूसँग फेरि पनि सहकारी गर्न तयार छौँ, यहाँहरूसँगै सिक्न तयार छौँ र सिक्नका लागि यहाँहरूको ढोकासम्म एडिन पक्कै आउनेछ। यति भन्दै म आजको कार्यक्रममा सहभागी जो हुनुभएको छ उहाँलाई सर्टिफिकेसन गर्ने कार्यक्रम रहेको छ र आजका सम्पूर्ण सहभागीलाई सर्टिफिकेट प्रदान गरिदिनु हुन आजको किनोट स्पिकर बनाड पोसट र आजको प्यानल डिस्कसनको मोडरेटर डाक्टर रामरी ढकाल सरलाई म स्टेजमा आमन्त्रण गर्दछु। प्लिज बनाड पोसट एन्ड रामरी ढकाल।
हजुर नमस्ते, म विनय वैद्य द एलिट स्पोर्ट स्कुलबाट। यो आज एडेनले अर्गनाइज गरेको यो प्रोग्राम चाहिँ धेरै राम्रो लाग्यो। सबभन्दा पहिला त जस्तै जुन पार्टिसिपेन्टहरूको ग्रुप थियो सबै हामी विभिन्न स्कुलका प्रिन्सिपल्सहरू एक ठाउँमा आएर आफ्नो कुराहरू इन्टरेक्सन गर्ने, प्लस गेस्ट लेक्चरबाट धेरै कुराहरू जान्ने बुझ्ने र खालि गेस्ट लेक्चरबाट मात्र होइन कि आफ्नो साथीभाइहरूबाट पनि यहाँको लोकल कल्चरहरू हामीले कसरी इम्प्लिकेट गरिरहेको छ आफ्नो एजुकेसन सिस्टममा त्यो कुराहरू सेयरिङहरू गर्ने, त्यो कुराहरू एकदमै राम्रो लाग्यो। र यो प्रोग्रामको अर्को एउटा एकदम विशेषता भनेको चाहिँ यसमा हामीले जुन अरू हाम्रा नेपालमा भइरहने प्रोग्रामहरूमा जुन व्यतिथि त्यो हुन्छ नि कार्यक्रम सुरु हुने एउटा टाइम तोकेको हुन्छ, त्यो टाइममा सबैजना आइ नपुग्ने त्यो कुराहरूलाई चाहिँ एकदमै राम्ररी म्यानेज गर्नुभएको हुन्छ नि, सबैजना समयमा आइपुग्नु भएको र ब्रेकहरूमा पनि जति स्टिपुलेटेड टाइम थियो त्यो ब्रेकमा सबैजना एउटा डिसिप्लिनमा बसेर त्यो टाइम फ्रेममा काम गरिराख्नु भएको र त्यहाँ बोल्दाखेरि पनि पहिला हाम्रो अरू धेरै जसो प्रोग्रामहरूमा चाहिँ अननेसेसरी इन्ट्रोडक्सन गरिराख्ने यताउति कुराहरू भइरहेको थियो, तर यसमा चाहिँ एकदमै टु दि पोइन्ट होइन ती कुराहरू भइरहेको र कन्टेन्ट आफैमा पनि अहिलेको जल्दो बल्दो एजुकेसन सिस्टमलाई चाहिने हामी मोडर्नाइजेसनमा जाँदाखेरि डिजिटाइजेसनमा जाँदाखेरि के कुराहरू हामीसँग भइरहेका राम्रो कुराहरूलाई चाहिँ आत्मसात गर्दै व्यतिथिहरूलाई छोड्दै नयाँ कुरालाई कसरी राम्रो अँगाल्ने भन्ने कुराहरूलाई एकदमै राम्ररी व्याख्या गरेर हामीले सिक्ने मौका पायौँ। त्यसको लागि एडेन फ्यामिलीलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद।
नमस्ते, म गायत्री कडेलपुरी डेजी एजुकेसनल एकाडेमी रामकोट नागार्जुन 6 को विद्यालयको प्रिन्सिपल। आजको यस एडविन नेपालले आयोजना गरेको एक दिने ट्रेनिङ लिन पाउँदा सर्वप्रथम म उहाँहरूलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु। आजको यस ट्रेनिङबाट चाहिँ मैले विशेष बुझेको थोरै रूपमा मैले भन्नुपर्दा चाहिँ नेपालमै बसेर पनि संस्थागत विद्यालयहरूले एजुकेसन क्षेत्रमा एकदमै राम्रै कामहरू गर्दै आउनु भएको र त्यसलाई चाहिँ आगामी दिनहरूमा पनि कसरी चाहिँ बढीभन्दा बढी प्रभावकारी ढङ्गबाट लगेर चाहिँ नेपालमै शिक्षा लिएर नेपालमै बसेर ग्लोबलाइजेसनको लागि भनेर हामीले विदेश जब गर्नको लागि बाहिरतिर जाने भन्दा पनि नेपालमै बसेर पनि नेपाली शिक्षा हासिल गरेर पनि शिक्षा क्षेत्रलाई ठुलो योगदान दिन सक्छौँ भन्ने कुरा हाम्रो ट्रेनरहरूबाट चाहिँ आज हामीले सिक्ने मौका पायौँ। यो भनेको चाहिँ हाम्रो लागि यस्तो एकदम ठुलो अपर्च्युनिटी हो। हामी जस्तो साधारण स्कुलहरू चलाएर बस्ने प्रिन्सिपलहरूलाई पनि उहाँहरूले चाहिँ सही तरिकाबाट फरेनरहरूबाट चाहिँ ट्रेनिङ दिनुभएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ आज चाहिँ मैले आफूलाई एकदम सही तरिकाबाट चाहिँ अझ कसरी आफ्नो स्कुललाई चाहिँ राम्रोसँग चलाउन सक्छु भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ अझै बढी ज्ञान हासिल गर्न पाएको आफूले महसुस गरेको कारणले गर्दा म व्यक्तिगत रूपबाट पनि उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु। धन्यवाद।
नमस्कार, म वासुदेव घिमिरे द एक्सल पब्लिक सेकेन्डरी स्कुलको फाउन्डर प्रिन्सिपल तथा नागार्जुन प्राप्सनको अध्यक्ष। आजको यस इडेन नेपालले आयोजना गरेको कार्यक्रम नेपालमा रहेका संस्थागत विद्यालयहरूले संस्थागत रूपमा गर्नुपर्ने विकासको बारेमा र अहिलेको यो परिप्रेक्ष्यमा ग्लोबल सिटिजन कसरी उत्पादन गर्न सकिन्छ, विश्व बजारमा हाम्रा विद्यार्थीहरू नेपाली विद्यार्थीहरूलाई लान सकिन्छ, साथै हाम्रा विद्यार्थीहरूलाई अबको युगमा अर्थात् 21औं शताब्दीमा टेक्नो फ्रेन्डली कसरी गर्न सकिन्छ, विद्यार्थीहरूको समग्र विकासमा होलिस्टिक डेभलपमेन्ट कसरी गराउन सकिन्छ भन्ने विषयमा आज जुन कार्यक्रम रह्यो र कार्यक्रम इडेन नेपालले आयोजना गरेको कार्यक्रममा अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय ट्रेनर जो आउनुभएको छ उहाँ श्री बनहाटले इन्टरनेसनल्ली युरोपियन कन्ट्रीहरूमा कस्तो छ र हाम्रो नेपालमा कस्तो छ त्यो दुईटालाई इन्टिग्रेसन कसरी गर्न सकिन्छ, ट्रेडिसनल शिक्षा दिने पद्धति र मोडर्न पद्धतिमा हामी कसरी चाहिँ क्रिटिकल्ली तिनीहरूलाई इन्टिग्रेट गर्न सकिन्छ भन्ने सन्दर्भमा चाहिँ आज कार्यक्रम रह्यो। असाध्यै यो कार्यक्रम फ्रुटफुल रहेको चाहिँ मैले महसुस गरेँ। हामी सहभागीहरूले पनि यो कार्यक्रम असाध्यै राम्रो रहेको र हामी यस कार्यक्रम पश्चात फर्केर जाँदै गर्दाखेरि पनि हाम्रा संस्थागत विद्यालयहरूमा आज सिकेका कुराहरू चाहिँ हामी इन्टिग्रेट गर्न सक्छौँ, त्यहाँ लागू गर्न सक्छौँ भन्ने चाहिँ मलाई अनुभूत भएको छ। धन्यवाद।
नमस्कार, म लक्ष्मण ढुङ्गाना आमादलम एकाडेमीको प्रिन्सिपल र आज यस इडिनले सञ्चालन गरेको एक दिने कार्यशाला गोष्ठीको सहभागी। आजको यस कार्यक्रममा इडिनले जुन इन्टरनेसनल एक्सपिरियन्स हामी सहभागी माझमा लिएर आएर कसरी इन्टरनेसनल आइडियाजहरू हाम्रो स्कुलमा एप्लाई गर्न सक्छौँ र हामी पार्टिसिपेन्टभित्रको कम्पिटिसनको भावनालाई कोलाबोरेसनमा कसरी लग्न सक्छौँ र एकअर्काबाट सिक्न सक्छौँ भन्ने कुरामा चाहिँ जुन तरिकाले चाहिँ यो कार्यशाला गोष्ठी आयोजना गर्यो यसले नेपालको समग्र एजुकेसन सिस्टममा नै एउटा ट्रान्सफर्मेसन्स ल्याउन चाहिँ सहयोग पुग्छ भन्ने चाहिँ मैले विश्वास गरेको छु र त्यो अनुभव गर्न पाएँ। र यस सिलसिलामा आज भएको प्यानलिस्ट डिस्कसन्सदेखि लिएर अहिले भएको वर्कसपले के अनुभूत गराउँदछ भन्दा चाहिँ हाम्रो एजुकेसन सिस्टममा हामीले नै यहाँ केही परिवर्तन गर्न सक्छौँ र हामी स्टेक होल्डर्सहरू नै मिलेर एजुकेसन सिस्टमलाई चाहिँ अगाडि लिएर जान सक्छौँ भन्ने कुराको अनुभूत भएको मैले महसुस गरेँ। धन्यवाद।